Yes.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Halton Garden Week. My name is Andrea Rowe. I am the Director of Sustainable Environments for Halton Environmental Network, one of your co-hosts for this 4-day event. And it is my great pleasure to welcome our next speaker, Gail Whitlow, from my wonderful relationship that I have developed over the last year or so with an organization called Grandmother's Voice. So Gail is joining us today to talk about herbal medicine and the plants and the powers. I had asked her to do a talk on some additional teachings. We know that native species are wonderful for attracting pollinators. Sometimes they're edible plants. And I just wanted to dive a little bit deeper into the knowledge that Gail can bring to us. So welcome. We are thrilled to have you. And I will turn it over to you now.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Andrea, for asking me to come and give this little presentation today. I do have a little bit of my talk here on the screen here, but a lot of my talk isn't going to be focused on that. But let's just keep it up, just so that I don't have any problem when I'm actually looking to talk about what we do have on the screen. So, Sego se wakwego, ka dine niyongets. Hello, everyone. Ka dine is my traditional name. My real name, or my name that was given here is Gail Whitlow. I am from Six Nations. I am of Mohawk descent, and I belong to what we call Bear Clan. So the Bear Clan is really important because it helps you to have a family affiliation. So, all Bear Clan people are brothers and sisters, no matter where we are on this beautiful planet Earth. So I'm just saying that I am also the mother of 5 children, and I have 15 grandchildren, and I'm going to be having one more like any day now. So it's always such a pleasure to welcome all of these little ones into our life. And it's really interesting to see, they're how excited they are, when they walk in the bush, and they're with the medicines and they're with the plants. And I have a space that I call Land of the Dancing Deer. And anytime we ever have groups or we have events there and my grandchildren are there, they know that bush better than anyone else. And they take their little friends and off they go, and they're out doing whatever kids do in the bush, looking and exploring. And so it's really interesting, that kids still have that real natural connection to that beautiful world that we don't get to spend as much time in these days as our ancestors did. So I'm going to talk a little bit about herbal medicine, but more so I'm going to talk about the importance of looking for sustainability in our lives. And all we have to do is turn the TV on, and we're looking at all different types of natural disasters. We're told to share our food, and we're told to store our food, but in a natural disaster, you'll probably end up losing all of that food, because you'll have to move from your premises, or what something is going to happen, and you just have to leave. And so you're going to have to really get familiar with what you can forage and what you can find. And so you can create that in your gardens as well. So the more that you create the gardens, and the more functional they are, or fruit trees and your nut trees and your shrubs that you can help maintain your life, the more strong feeling you're going to have that you're going to be able to make it through whatever comes, because wherever you happen to end up, you'll be able to recognize these beautiful plants, and you'll be able to know that they have probably a medicinal purpose somehow. And so that's a little bit about what I wanted to talk about too. So one of the key things that we should keep in mind also is our pollinators. they're of extreme importance, especially in this time. I mean, so much is happening to our pollinators. They're not able to do their job as efficiently because their landscapes are being destroyed, progress, all these wonderful, beautiful homes that, we live in, work and play in, really takes a lot from our natural environments. And so our urban sprawl is taking a toll on the ability of Mother Nature to function as well as she needs to for the amount of us as human beings that we have in our spaces. And whenever you're planning a design, it's always good to also work with how the sun rotates. A lot of people don't realize, that when you're planting, you want, depending on what whatever you've chosen as plant material, that there's ways to plant so that they get the benefit of the sun, for instance. So, for instance, if you're planting, if the sun goes from east to west, then you should plant north to south, and that way you'll be able to get the full benefit of the sun. Sometimes you want part shade, part sun, and so you just have to start to begin to work with the different plant materials also to see what they like. And as an example, one of our traditional medicines is, it's a species of lobelia, and basically it's our natural tobacco, our traditional tobacco. And when I was, and I knew that it liked sun. So I kind of had my little patch out in the sun, but it takes so much watering, and I had one part too I grew. It was morning sun, evening shade. And the morning sun, evening shade, those plants, they just took off, and they really outdid my full sun. And so that was kind of like something that I didn't expect. It was like, what, they grew so beautifully, and they required even less water than those in the full sun. So planting and gardening, it's fun, but it's also very experimental. And where I got kind of the interest is from my mother. My mother was always an avid gardener. She always planted a garden, and she was every year that she did that. And so even though as young kids, there was 7 of us, and little did I know that that little garden helped the budget too. But when you're young, you don't realize that. But we were always picking the carrots out of the garden and the onions out of the garden, and she loved her berries and different things. So we had raspberries, but we had a whole bunch of tomatoes and different things in the garden. So watching her over the years, how attentive she was with the garden really inspired that within us, because her other love was flowers. So she has always has tending to her flowers and then taking care of her flowers. And raising 7 children, I think it was more of a therapy than it was a garden, because she could get her hands in there. Maybe if there was a little bit of stress from raising us 7, she was able to put her hands in there and say, I release my stress. Now we know what that's all about. But at the time it was like, gee, my mom really spends a lot of time in her garden, But there was always this beauty too, because then you got to watch how they grew. So you got to again watch, where she planted different things, so that you would know how to get the best harvest from all of the different things and what she planted together. So she didn't even know the word companion planting, yet her garden grew wonderfully, because for whatever reason, she knew what grew together and what didn't. It was just kind of like a thing that she learned over time. So in her childhood, she was also a gardener. So she grew up on a farm. She grew up, in the barn. She grew up milking cows and horses, and not milking horses, but the horses, the chickens, and she grew up on the farm. So again, the garden was a very important component there. So they were self-sustainable as children. And I had always admired the hard work that they put in. I mean, the old timers, the older people, they're really hard workers. And again, it was because they had to. So my father, he grew up on the harvest. Well, he actually was born in Vineland, because that was on the harvest trail. So they would always be harvesting the tomatoes and the cherries, and they're always following that work. Again, because it was a necessity to feed their children, but it also made them very very strong, and also that connection that they had with working that outside work. Their minds were really clear, and their minds seemed to be really bright. And these days we visit our elders in the nursing homes, and they're like, their mind isn't nearly as strong as I can remember from my grandmother and my great grandmother. And those gardening certainly does have a huge benefit to our mental health. Also, as far as our mental health goes, to spend time in the garden really helps with a lot of those disorders, because your mind, it's out of balance for a reason, and the imbalance comes from that disconnection. So finding that time to put focus into your garden or into some outdoor activity really is, I would call it mind food. So when we're working with different medicines, there are certain things that come to mind. So for instance, I've called this herbal medicine, but so this next slide is something that one day just came out of the blue. So we really know how important it is to have water in any of these gardening environments. We know that there's a real strong connection between how much or how much less water that your garden requires. So I had one of my first courses that I went when I went back to school for my herbology was biochemistry, and I hadn't done biochemistry in years. And so it's like, oh my gosh, if I can survive biochem, I can survive anything. And one of the first things that, of course, we talked about was, the water molecule. And when I saw that, I thought of the solar system. So when I look at the solar system and I look at a water molecule, you can see the really intense connection that exists. So what happens here on this planet is affected by what's going on outside of our planet as well. In our solar system, which is affected by other solar systems, which is affected by something much greater than we're aware of. So this was really important for my I guess my learning process when I made this connection like years ago. And it just came out of the blue. It was like, wow, I'm looking at a solar system every time I look at this water molecule. So this water molecule also represents us as human beings. We really need to be able to understand how we work within not only our human bodies, but also how we work within the environments, and how all of those connect. So that I just wanted to throw that in there, because I see a really strong significance in an understanding that we're more than just our gardens. We're more than just our 9-to-5 jobs. We're connected to something that is much more massive. Let's see here. Don't have to do that. So sometimes this talk can also be called a little bit like traditional medicine in modern times, because we're looking at what naturally was 200 years ago, 300 years ago. and how that has evolved and how that has changed over time. So there's different forms of these plant materials and these plant medicines as well. So even though we like to take them outside of their natural environment, they do much better when they are in their own natural environment where they have lived and survived, surrounded by other plant materials for years and years. And it's because of what happens when they have the nutrients from these other plant as well. So when we take our plant and we take it out of its natural environment and we put it into our sculptured gardens, then we are taking the essence of this plant and we're changing it, because just like that, the nitty gritty, we are connected somehow. So we're already telling that plant material that it has to change something because it is now in a new environment and it's not close to, all of those other nutrients that, it requires. So it shifts and it changes a little bit. It's DNA. And then of course we have the new way of creating hybrids. So we take something and we splice it and we change and we alter it and we create a species of a species. And when you're looking at it from a Latin perspective, that's a lot to memorize, all the different names and species that, each of these plant families have. So one of the things too is when we were looking at our medicines and they were growing naturally in our environments, our ways talk about how we use these to improve our sense of well-being and our health, because we have to use some of these as feast foods. And so over time, we start to figure and know that the way to honor our entities and our ceremonies is with specific plant materials as well. So I'll use plant materials a lot in this because it's the easiest way I can to, I know how to describe, I guess, the element of that very important basic structure of that seed that manifests itself into, the beautiful plants that we see. But know that if we leave our natural wildflower scapes to their own device, it's really interesting to see how they grow and how they change and how they interact and, how they support one another. And I'm not going to say that, our beautiful manicured gardens aren't valuable, because they are. A lot of us really need that as well because of, again, all of the things that we're facing in today's environment. Things may be easier, but on our mind and our brain and our way of thinking, it's actually a lot harder because it's more unnatural. So it's like us relating to those unnatural aspects. So my grandma, I didn't know this for years and years, but her name was, I had my grandma Sue. And so, of course, I think I was 10 when she made her way to the spirit world, and she was in her 80s when she did so. But my grandma, she was one that grew up on these, on these trails of harvest trails. And so she would walk great distances, and she had this little apron with her. And so as she was walking down the roads and, walking here, she would fill up her apron with all this medicine. And I didn't know that she was so heavily involved. So she was also a midwife. And so, of course, I didn't know her till she was older. But in her earlier life, she had been also a midwife. So she had a lot of different, I guess, tools up her belt. And so a lot of these medicines too, she would use in her medicinal treatment during, of labor and delivery. So, you know, I'm over 60 now, and I can see great change. Like I can see how, when I was much younger, we could drink the water from the well, and and it was no problem to go and take a pail and get water from the well and come in and use it to cook and use it for everything that you needed, and um, heat your water and bath in it and all of these things, because when I was younger, I had lived in the city, and then we would go home on the weekends, and we go home during the summer. So we got used to, the outhouse and being able to drink your natural water, um, and so here on Six Nations, a lot of us don't have water, and you really can't drink if you have a well. That water is like totally contaminated, and we have an issue with that. But I mean, so these are just examples of the way old ways are changing, and they're affecting everyone. So in a way, they're a blessing, because if they're affecting everyone, then everyone will be on the bandwagon to make great change, and to prepare. So I started my talk by talking a little bit about prophecy, and prophecy tells us that exactly what's going on right now was forecast way back then, and we have been urged, and we have been getting the message for many years now to be prepared. And so people may not understand what that means, but it means like understand what's outside your back door and in your environment, so that you know what you can use and what you can't. So it's kind of like one thing that I don't work closely with is mushrooms. And this year, there was so many mushrooms that I have never seen before, but I know how dangerous mushrooms can be. And so, and I know that there's friendly mushrooms and there's, death mushrooms. And if you don't really know mushrooms, then you kind of like say, oh, okay, I just am not going to go there because I'm not 100% sure how to use that. I mean, turkey tails, and there's, chaga, and there's different things that, yeah, we do know that. But I mean, there was so many mushrooms that I can't recall seeing, on the property before with all the moisture. So I knew to, and some of them are very beautiful, some of them are very beautiful. So in our gardens, these kinds of things happen too. Like all of a sudden we know we didn't plant something there, and then all of a sudden there's something growing within our garden, and we don't exactly know what it is. Maybe it's really beneficial, maybe it's a weed, but usually we just take it out of there because we want the look of, what it was we planted. So when we talk about this butterfly garden, then the reason I'm saying the focus is on that is because if we change from, if we are into these changing ways, and we do know that we have to adapt, then we also enable our minds to be at ease when we start to know what we have in our backyards. So if we're creating our gardens and we know exactly what's in it, and we do a little research and we find out, more about that companion planting, then we are able then to have a peace of mind, knowing that we can go further, that we can maybe harvest something from our garden this year, the different plant materials, start using them. We just went through COVID, and we're on the tail end of it now. And a lot of families have already experienced it. I know my whole family went through, COVID, and some of them with ease, most of us with ease. Like there was really no bad symptoms, even myself. And it was partly because I have the understanding of various plant medicines. So I know if I'm experiencing this symptom, then I know that I can take this medicine and it's going to help me. So that's kind of what you want to introduce into your planted gardens as well. So I'm going to show you a few pictures of some of the plants that will look beautiful in your garden, but they also have like some medicinal value as well. So I guess the last thing before I get into that is we have a very interesting way of connecting with these medicines, and it's through words. So we do an acknowledgement that we call the Thanksgiving address. And usually we do this opening if we are having some type of event, if we are, having important meetings and different things. And what we do is we take all of these elements. So we think about the plants and the trees and the shrubs and the flyers and the winged ones and the fish. And we also think of the elements, the winds and the thunders, and we also acknowledge the sun and the moon and the celestials and the creator, because once we realize that we're not disconnected, and once we put these into our minds, it helps our minds to settle. And when our minds settle, then we're much able to be at peace. And what we're looking for these days is peace. So sometimes, you hear mantras, and so you hear, chants, and you hear different things, and these things are meant to take you through different vibrations. So in our plant world, there's also all of those different vibrations and all of the different types of plant materials that we will be working with. So when we're saying this Thanksgiving address, it's reinforcing the ceremonial aspect of who we are, that cultural part of, that acknowledgement, but it's also asking those ancestors to come and to also to help us, figure things out. And a lot of times we turned off that part because we don't know that our ancestors are like right here, right beside us. And these ancestors are also in the form of our medicines. So this is one last story, and then I'll get to the slides showing you some of these different medicines. So when we talk about medicines, a lot of us don't know that they have a spirit. And if we have heard that, we don't always have the ability to understand exactly what that means. So what that simply means is, I'll give you an example of how I was able to understand this deeper. So on my sacred land, I was doing a pipe ceremony, and I don't even know what I was praying for at the time. I just know that we were called to do pipe. Here I am, I'm all ready to do pipe, but I'm, just getting into it. And all of a sudden, we were doing pipe under Grandfather Oak. And Grandfather Oak turned into this spirit. And the spirit, he looked like a sumo wrestler. He had a red karate suit. He had a red headband. He had long hair. And he said to me, "What is it you seek?" And here I am. I'm doing my pipe, and I'm just like, well, what? I couldn't believe that I was seeing what I was seeing. And he said, "What is it you seek?" And so I didn't have the answer, right then and there. But I saw enough to know that I saw his spirit. And even though he stands as a tree, I saw his spirit. And I know that he communicates with all the other trees, all the other shrubs, all the other plants. And that's why sometimes when you need that really deep healing, that you go sit under the tree, that you go just out into that nice fresh air, and you just find that place where you can be at peace. It's because all of those entities are there, and they're there to help. They're here in a big way. So I wanted to share that with you, because sometimes we're shamed for talking like that. It's like, you didn't really see that. There's no such thing as spirits. Like that has been driven from us for so long that we're afraid when we see that and we feel that. So I'm telling you, I'm not afraid. And I know that it's real because I experienced it. And that's why I'm sharing it with you. Because if you have that, you've had that experience and you think you're nuts, I'm just letting you know that you are very, very, very lucky that you were able to have that connection, because you also know what I saw and what I felt as well. So getting into our let me see here. How do I go down here? Let's see. Getting into our oops. Getting into our butterflies and our bees. Salvia. So salvia is a huge plant family. There's many different types of salvia. The one that I really like is Salvia officinalis, and it's kind of like the garden sage. It's the sage that you can buy in your supermarkets, and you use it in your cooking, and it has like usually you see the leaves. And I remember when I thought I was going to be smart and plant my sage by my well, I learned that that wasn't a good thing to do, because I had the sage, I think, for 3 years, and then it died. And I was going, wow, it was blooming so nice. And, I was able to harvest and it was so wonderful. So why did it die? And then I realized that sage does not like water. So here I was thinking, I'm going to plant it by my well. It will have, all of this water. And it's going, my feet are too wet. I really would rather be preferred. I really would like to be planted somewhere else because, I prefer a drier soil. So a lot of these things have been tried and true, learned the hard way. And it's like, okay, now I understand. And so, but it does make you question, like, gee, how come it doesn't like, the water? You think it would like the water? So salvia or sage, we use it a lot of course, you might have heard of smudging. If you haven't heard of smudging now, it's kind of like we take this plant material and we light it and we cleanse our space and ourselves with sage. So there's lots of different types of sage that you can use for that. You can even use the garden sage for that if you'd like, but each of the different sages have just a slightly different energy to them as well. And these the energy of the sage is it's female because it deals with a lot of reproductive issues. And even if you have issues with fibroids and different things along that line, you can use sage oil, and you can massage that sage oil and put a heated towel, and it really helps you to deal with those issues of female health, but also male health as well. So it's also used like for digestive sage, loss of appetite, flatulence, stomach pain, diarrhea, bloating, heartburn. The only thing with sage is it contains thujone. And if you are susceptible to seizures, then this would not be a plant that you should ingest. But it sure is pretty, and it sure will bring those butterflies and bees into your gardens. I was inspired by a book I read when I was just a child, and it was called The Travels of Monarch X. And so it was the journey that monarch butterflies take, from their environments down in Mexico, and how they traveled north. And I'm looked at those butterflies, and ever since I was a child, I was fascinated with that monarch butterfly and the journey that it shares. So I really would love flowers that would attract and help these butterflies to survive. So salvia is one of those that do attract those butterflies and create an essence of beauty and life into your garden. So the next plant, I don't have a time here. I don't want to go over on you or under. Okay, so the next plant that I have here is, let's see if I go down, is garlic and onions. So one of the things that helped during this pandemic was, to take that slice of onion and put it on the bottom of your feet and put a sock over top and to sleep with it all night. That helps to clear your chest. It helps with your health in such powerful ways. And of course, eating an onion or slicing an onion and putting it into your environments helps to absorb all of the bacteria, and it helps to clean the air. So these are a really, really important part, again, of your garden. And look at how beautiful they are. And of course, they come out in the spring, and it's just so amazing to, like, if you're close to Tiffany Falls and those different areas, you go down there and there's so many blooming. And then of course we have the botanical gardens. Oh my gosh, they do such a beautiful display. And so onions work with the mind. And I would call them, and if you look at them, look at how they're shaped. It's like, if ever there was a doctrine of signatures, just take a look at that onion and you see its connection to your mind. It's kind of like not just your brain, but your whole mind and your whole essence. So basically it just helps you to inhale and to feel better and to work with that brain power in a much stronger way. So it helps with epileptic fits, madness, and especially brain pain. So brain pain happens, and sometimes it comes in the form of tinnitus, and there's just certain things that the garlic and the onion family have. So I'm going general here, kind of with the name. So when you see allium, there's a whole bunch of different varieties that you can choose, but I'm kind of giving you the plant family names so that you can take advantage of the plant families and look through those families and figure out what's going to best suit your garden. But just having, the garden or the garlic in your family, your plant family design is really a big positive thing. Okay, so the next family, and I just happen to really love this family. So Monarda or bee balm, bergamot, this is such a powerful plant family. And one of the ways that we use this plant family is for nausea and digestive issues. So if you have travel sickness, if you have nausea due to pregnancy, or if you're not processing certain things that have come into your life, you just can't, it just doesn't fit right in there, then Monarda, the family, has many options. And look at the beauty of these this beautiful plant. It really does bring an essence of, I guess, feeling good into your space. So it's also used for like your colds, your flus, your upper respiratory problems. Again, we have gas issues, diarrhea, nausea, fevers, whooping cough, and skin problems and wounds. So I use bergamot in my stomach digestive formula because it really helps with inflammation. So if you're having stomach issues, to have a tea of bergamot really does help with settling your stomach. And more so, it also works with your mind too, because anything to do with that stomach has to do with the mind again, and how you're processing. But there's a whole wide range of different members in this family. And so I guess you would choose, what suits you best in your garden. But the bees and the butterflies, they're really attracted to these. So this is a really great pollinator, and also it's natural to this land. So the other thing about gardens is we really have to get used to going back to our original species. One of the species that we have adopted over time has been plantain. And we're really glad that plantain has come, but it wasn't a natural plant species here. They call it white man's footsteps because as the people came off the boats, the plantain just kind of like naturally followed people. And so it was a different plant for us. And so working with plants was such a natural thing that we were able to recognize its very powerful properties, like really quickly and really fast. But the key is to usually the plants that grow in your areas are the ones that most help you with your health issues. So yeah, so I can't talk enough about this plant. And also it tastes wonderful, and it mixes so well with some of many other plants as well. But I mean, this is a must have in your gardens. Okay, so next we have, what do we have next? Next we have Veronica. So the family of Veronica is really similar to plantain, and there's just so many different colors and so many different varieties. I mean, like as you're looking at these different plant families, like basically all you really need to do is figure out your color scheme, and you can probably pick something from all of these to fit into your color scheme. And I mean, just the colors are so vibrant, and the foliage is just it just works so nicely. So one of the interesting things about this plant is it helps to stop bleeding. Really good for like minor, so there's major and there's minor skin irritations. And usually it's one of those nice spring tonic teas. So there's ways that you can incorporate your beautiful gardens into your daily pattern of herbal teas. So I found it interesting that when I traveled to Poland, that I was never offered a coffee. I don't drink coffee anyways, but always it was, would you like herb tea? And so usually the herb tea was nettles or lemon balm. Like those two were so plentiful throughout Poland that and so beneficial to our health. But I was really generally interested in how these beautiful plant materials can be mixed together to give you these beautiful tonics. So a tonic is really meant to give you an added bonus. It's meant to lift your mind, body, and spirit. It also works internally to help your body adjust. So it's like, here's a few extra nutrients you need because all winter long, your body went without this, this, and this, but now it's the season for this. And so they give you those beautiful, I hope my computer's not turning off. It just got a little bit dark there. Ah! So if it does, so I better check to see really fast where my cord is. Yeah. So the other interesting thing about this family is its ability to be a blood tonic as well. Just one quick second. I better plug this in. I don't want to lose you for the last few minutes. Oh, there we go. We're back on again. So, yeah, so just kind of take a look at all the different species that this family has, and I'm sure you're going to find one certainly to help you. Now, this next one is not native really to Canada, so I didn't put too much detail into here. It's used mainly in Asia and Africa. And the reason why I put it on here though is because it's a thistle. Anytime that you incorporate thistles into your garden, and you should, they're highly protective. So, you know, if you've ever run into a patch of thistle, you're never going to do it again. You're going to be more careful, because that thistle, you know, it's just going to beat you up, and you just don't really want that. So the thistles, they have that protective edge to them. So when you incorporate different types of thistles into your garden, I just like this one because I just like the way that it looks. It's just like a really beautiful thistle. And so that's why I included. I could have picked many other ones, but there was something about this thistle that I really like. So when I say protective, I'm thinking about snakes. So it depends on what you want and don't want into your garden. But I'm also thinking of unwanted entities, because you know, we live within the spirit world, and even though most of us don't recognize that we do have you know, entities that might try to get a little bit too close to us, and the thistles really help to keep these away. So the more thistles you can have in your garden, it also keeps, you know, some of the different rodents and different things at bay as well. So think of the rose. Look at how beautiful roses are, but look at the rose, you know, in all its beauty. It also has all of those thistles too. So, you know, you've heard the analogy of, oh, look at that, a rose between two thorns, you know. That beauty, you know, intertwined with something else. So so the thistle family is like highly important too in your garden design, and that beautiful flower really does help attract the pollinators. Oh gosh, the next one that we have here is the Estranthia family. So Estranthia is known as masterwort. So again, we have so many different types of species in this family. But look at how beautiful it is. Like every morning, stepping out into your patio and looking at, you know, Estrantias, it's like, oh, breath of fresh air. You know, just look at the beauty that you see. And again, a lot of different colors. So usually it's more the stems and the rhizomes. So every plant has a different way of, you know, there's their root system are all different. You have the root systems that lay across the land. You have taproot. You know, you have, you know, hairy fibrous root systems. Like you have so many different types of root systems. And so one thing about all of these too is you have to really get to know what the root systems are of all of these different plants. So as you're working with them, like be mindful, like when the end of the year comes, if they're perennials, then you don't really want to disturb the root system unless it's like bulbous, because if you pick it, then yeah, that's it in most cases. You have to replant or wait for it to rejuvenate or reseed. But if you just cut them to the base, then that root system is there to bring back your beautiful flowers again the next year. So sometimes this is used as, for issues of the stomach again, but we can also use it for digestion and sometimes, especially with issues like chemotherapy and radiation, you lose your appetite, and so this helps to stimulate your appetite once again. And there's lots of other reasons why you might lose your appetite too. But again, the masterwort family is such a beautiful and helpful family in your butterfly pollinator garden. So Woodlia. Now again, having to choose the right plant to display. I like this because I like the vibrance of the color. Again, we're using these gardens also, not just a pollinator garden, but as a mind garden for us. So you walk out there and all of a sudden you see, the species and you're going, oh my gosh, that's just gorgeous. And it's something that takes your mind away from everything that you're going through. And the good thing about this plant is it grows almost anywhere. It's a hardy plant, and you can grow it. It even doesn't mind, the odd stone and rock and different things. It will adjust to both clay and sand. So it's a very hardy plant, and so you don't have. So those of you who are beginner gardeners, this is kind of a family that you may want to put more into your garden, because it's harder to make a mistake, with this family than some of the other ones that require a little bit extra care. So this last one here is one of my favorites. This is the Achillea family, or the yarrow family. Now, I can't tell you enough about this plant. This medicine here is one that everyone should know, because if you're out foraging, say you're in Algonquin Park and you fall and you get hurt, and you have this great big gash on your leg, and there's nothing you can do, you don't know how to stop the bleeding. This is one of those plants that can help with that. So what you would do is you would take the plant and you would kind of fold it up and you would put it directly in there and try to cover it, or tighten it. And what it will do is it will help to staunch the blood flow. So it will help to dry up that blood, and it will help to stop the bleeding so that you can, get to help faster. Yarrow was one of the plants that helped me to, I would call it, be more gentle. This is a very powerful medicine for the mind. This medicine here, I remember when I was, always in a hurry. Always in a hurry. If I was 5 minutes late or going to be late, I would just get so upset. And I started taking this, and then it turned into, oh well, the sun is still shining. I'm still here. I'm not dead. So what's 5 minutes if I'm late for 5 minutes? Oh well, this is a wonderful medicine for women who are menstruating, because sometimes we have issues with blood flow, and it's able to staunch blood flow if we have heavy flow, but it's also able to bring on blood flow if we have something, dysmenorrhea, different issues like that. So and again, fever. Oh, this is a really good medicine for fever and head colds and congestion, and also great for the liver. So I know I better check my time here. I see that I'm getting down to the end of my talk, but there's just so much to consider when you're putting in your gardens. And if I can just stick this one in really fast, this is the Penstem in the family. And again, those bellflowers. And this is a common weed. This is everywhere. And sometimes you're afraid because of the shape of the flower. But And a lot of times now they're more cultivated. They're not as close to their natural environment. But again, it's one that helps to fill those areas when you're not able to care for your plants as well. Like it takes less care for this. So one of the things that this is used for is toothaches. So you take the root of the plant and you chew it till it turns into pulp, and you put it into that area of your toothache, and then it helps to take away that tooth pain. So many things that you put in your garden have very powerful medicinal properties, and so I just wanted to, share these with you today. There's like so many other I could have talked about today, but I hope that when you're doing your gardens this year, that you think about our environment and you think about survival and you think about creating a safety net for your family in case these earth changes that are here overtake us, and we have to be prepared. If your gardens can sustain you, that's your goal. So happy gardening, everyone. And I haven't had time to look in the chat. I'm sure there's a chat here somewhere. I haven't been able to look, but it's been a pleasure talking with you today. And thank you so much for listening. And I hope you have a new insight on some of these amazing.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gail. Do you have time to stay for a couple of questions?
Sure.
All right, I saw a couple in the chat. The one that I can think of off the top of my head as I scroll through is, how do you make tea from the Monarda? And is there a specific variety of the flower? And would you like to show the last slide on your presentation while everybody can see that there's one more slide to go?
Oh, is there? Let's see, what is it? What do I have here? Oh, yes, there is, isn't
One
there?
of my favorites.
Blazing star. Oh, how can you not like the blazing star? Okay, so Monarda, you can use the whole plant. So basically, you can even use the roots, but we try not to use the roots because we don't want to upset, the balance. So if you're called to use the roots, it's a deeper, you get a little bit of a deeper healing with it, but just cut above ground and you can use the whole plant. So the flower, you can use the herb, you can use the leaves for the bee balm. And again, it's a very good tasting medicine. So usually you would use one plant to one pot of tea. So you kind of take it and you kind of like fold it up and put it in the pot and pour the boiling water over top, and you let it steep a little bit, and then just give it a minute and then enjoy it. Best to be taken before meals, especially if you're dealing with digestive issues. But yeah, this blazing star, oh my gosh. So medicinally, this one again is an internal antispasmodic. So a lot of these are used for your stomach digestive issues, because that's the base for all disease, is your stomach. So it's like beautiful tall flowers, and again, there's many in the family. And if you see how it grows, you can see that it's such a valuable addition to any butterfly garden. So sorry about that. I thought I was done, but I guess I wasn't.
No, that's okay. Yeah. It's one of my favorites as well. So I'm glad that we got to that one. There's a question about tea from yarrow. Is it the same concept of, I know yarrow is much larger than Monarda, so proportion wise?
It's the same thing. It's nice when it's flowering. So the flowers are not as big as, say, the wild carrot. They're smaller flower heads, and the stem is more feathery like, or the Yeah. And so again, it's best to take just as it's beginning to flower, when it's flowering. I mean, you can possibly take it after it's done flowering too. Certainly you can, but it's at its peak when it's flowering. But again, if you're in that bush and you have to staunch that blood flow, even before it flowers, you can use that anytime, and it will help with that. So, yeah.
I've heard about making a poultice, so it's always interesting to hear how you do that. Couple of questions throughout about the thistles. You've really piqued people's curiosity about repelling animals and
other things.
Spirits, yes. So just generally, can you talk a little bit more about which animals the thistles might repel? Just a little bit more information on that.
So yeah, I guess it's kind of like that rose bush, you know. You want to repel, and another one that repels too is that's not thistly, but it's marigold or calendula. You know, that also has kind of works in the same way, but there's something about the thorns. Like one of my favorite is hawthorns, like hawthorn bushes and shrubs. That has that one. It has an entity all to itself, and it tells me like it's one of those plants that just, you know, it talks to you, and it, you know, it becomes part of you. Those thistles, they're repellents. So just like they repel animals from, you know, going through that area, they'll repel like large animals and different things, because they don't want those thistles to prick you. And so entities don't like that either. I mean, believe it or not, you know, they can come very close to your house, and as they're coming in, the essence of that thistle, it's kind of like shoots out little darts, like stay away, stay away, stay away. That's the best way that I can describe, you know, the protective power of these medicines. It's kind of like they're a dart waiting to happen, so those entities will stay away. That's how I know it best.
The plant form of a porcupine?
Exactly. Yes. And you know, those young kids, those young little animals, they have to learn the hard way. You know, you get stuck with the porcupine quill, and well, you're not going to be attacking porcupines much more.
Yes. I tend to get rose thorns and raspberry thorns and all kinds of prickly things when you're out there trying to get the good stuff. Sometimes you intentionally, you can use them to intentionally keep things out, or not so intentionally.
but also, it also teaches you about being careful and not being too fast as well. Like, so I mean, plants teach you like so much. They teach you care and compassion, you know, love and nurturing, and they also teach you danger. So, you know, that's what they do. They can be very dangerous, those thistles. So you get a thistle, and then, you know, you have to extract it with different medicines, and then they can become infected, so they can kind of become a hazard to your health. So you have to learn how to tread softly with thistles. And so that reminds you to tread softly with many things in your life too. Like, don't think that, you know, you've got it all, when they're saying, be careful, you know. So
yes,
yeah,
we do need to slow down and be aware of our surroundings, yes, and not just charge through taking what we want.
Yes. And it also is a safety for some animals. You know, some animals can live in those underneath there, because they could fit nicely underneath there, and so it provides a protective nest too for some animals. So it keeps them out, but it also protects some, and so there's a duality to its job as well.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I think there's one question here around when do plants tend to show their spirit side to people?
That one is a question that would be different for everyone.
Mm.
So that can happen when you're working. Okay, so as an example, I was lucky enough to work at Sweetgrass Gardens when it was up and established here at Six Nations. And so I worked, we did the seeding part of it. And even at that time, there's a connection that happens when you're working with those seeds. I mean, those seeds are, you know, a plant waiting to happen. And so then you plant them, and then they are, you know, they come up and then they have to be replanted. And then there's a special essence that happens at that point. And then you plant them into the ground, and then, you know, you watch them bloom, and there's a special essence that happens at that time. So at any time, you can start to feel that spiritual connection. And sometimes some people are meant to have that, and some people aren't. But if you're a gardener, I would say 9.5 times out of 10, you felt that. You felt the plants. You feel something. That's what's attracted to your garden, is that ability to sense that, wow, there's something beyond the beauty of these plants that I'm experiencing. One time I was doing a medicine walk, and on my way down, there was some false Solomon seal, and they purposely were over the path as I was going down. And literally, I could not go past them. I had to stop, and I had to, you know, put my hand on the under the leaf there. And they were like little children. They were just so happy, and they were just like, I was going, wow, this is really special, you know, to be able to feel and see this family, because they were all a family at that time. And I mean, it can happen at any time, any place. And it even comes into your dreams, because maybe you need that in your garden. So it could come into your mind's eye first, and then you get that connection, and then next thing you know, it'll be in your garden, because that's simply something that you need at the time.
Mm-hmm.
There's no real...
A wonderful connection with the earth, with the plants around us. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
I see lots of amazing comments and notes of appreciation for everything that you've shared this afternoon. Yeah, thank you so much, Gail.
Oh, you're welcome, Andrea. Pleasure. It's been my pleasure.
I look forward to the next time when we can speak and talk more about the plants in the coming months.
Yes, we can. Yes. Okay. It's been my pleasure.
I will see you soon. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
Good afternoon, everyone.